Hey there, Laker fans. Welcome to another episode of Lakers Detailed. I am your host, Vinay, with my co host, Raj. We just got back from Las Vegas. Humid, well, I don't even know if it's humid, but hot and uncomfortable weather of Las Vegas. But the basketball was a lot of fun. And we wanted in this episode to talk about the first two games that we had in the Summer League. But before we get into that, Raj, are you recovered from beautiful Las Vegas?
Not yet. I don't think so. I drove back on Sunday, tried to beat the traffic, get out of the 105-degree weather to like 90-degree weather, which
Yeah.
I was hoping it'd be a little bit better at home, but no. I feel like it takes me like 3 or 4 days to get back into the normal swing of things. Vegas just feels like a whole other universe. You're drinking at like 12. Um, you sleeping at like 4. I woke up on Sunday and like rewatched the Saturday game, or
Yeah.
woke up on Saturday and like rewatched the Friday game.
Yeah.
And then got with my day. But no, it was fun, man. It was exciting to be in there for Wemby. People left for the main event, which is strange. They left the
Yeah.
Max Christie show. We got nice seats for that, but no, I'll be recovered in a few days. How about you?
Yeah, so I'm older than you, so recovery is even longer for me than other folks. But I've kind of figured I've been to Vegas enough times in my life where I've kind of figured my routine out while I'm out there. Um, so I mean, I think overall it was pretty cool. We got to meet, you and I both got to meet a lot of writers. We ran into Shams and just said hi, hello to him. We ran into a lot of folks from Lakers Twitter, so it was very nice to meet. I think TJ, I ran into somebody and while I was cashing out some chips. I think his name was Chanel was his name, and his buddy. They're at Laker fans out in Phoenix. And then we met, that we saw Daman and a couple of the regulars that we typically see, here and there around Lakers Twitter. So it was very cool because we finally got to meet. For me personally, I always love meeting the writers, like the beat guys that are like on
Yeah.
other teams and stuff like that. And then just meeting fellow fans and stuff like that. And it's like it's a very cool thing. I know you and I, we were watching the Wemby game and we were sitting next to like an OKC Thunder fan. I forget what the other guy was like I forget what he was a fan of, but it was just it's always cool to just talk to other fans and just kind of be part of an experience, even if your team isn't playing. So I thought overall it was good. What was your take? What did you take away from like the experience? I mean, you've been to Summer League before, many years before, but was there anything different about this time? This is a big promo for Summer League. We highly encourage people to go,
Right.
especially the first weekend, because as you guys noticed, Wemby is not playing anymore for the Spurs. So that's why the pro tip is go on the first weekend because they're going to shut down the Stars after 1 or 2 games. But is there anything you took away from this weekend?
Yeah, so this is like my 5th straight summer league, I
Yeah.
believe. I even went during like the COVID year. There weren't a lot of people there during that season. It definitely wasn't like this. This was the closest though to me to the Lonzo year. We're in like 2017, where it was packed to the brim. I mean, day one sold out. We were lucky we got our tickets early, but it was crowded in there. There were people in there at like 3 o'clock already saving seats and stuff like that for Wemby, which was like the 5 o'clock game. So I feel like it just gets bigger and bigger. I feel like the Lakers had a lot to do with that, honestly. I think having their lottery picks playing a few years ago, and I think that summer league just continued that momentum to where it's at now. And it's a lot of fun. It's like the least casual place. Like it's the most diehard fans really in there.
Yeah.
You'll see every team have their stint of fans with their jerseys on. You'll see some really interesting jerseys of players who may not even be in the rotation.
Yeah.
But it's a really cool spot, man. And you can, you'll have fans cheering as if it's a regular, season game sometimes. And it's a place where like you don't really get to see, for the ticket price at least, like you don't get to see these type of players this up close. Like if you get there early enough, you can be, 3 or 4s back of like some lottery pick talents where, you wouldn't really have that chance at a regular game. So I would encourage anyone who can go out there to go. Really exciting, really fun. You'll see all type of coaches, scouts, GMs, assistant GMs, whatever, walking around. You see players pull up and stuff like that. And again, it's like a basketball universe. I'm not into the MCU or whatever, so I'm sure like this is the closest thing I'll get to that in terms of like a basketball universe of itself. that exist every summer, which is really
Yeah.
cool. So yes,
And,
like, get
and,
out
and,
there if
while,
you
and
can.
while we were out there, they also announced another reason to go to Vegas. They're going to have the in-season tournament
All
in the
right,
first
yeah,
week of December. A lot of people have been grumbling and complaining about it, but like the play-in, I don't know what it's going to be like. I don't know if it's going to be amazing off rip or players won't take it seriously. Who knows whatever it's going to be. But I'm fascinated to see what that looks like. But for me, honestly, Raj, for you and I, we both live. If we took a flight, I took a flight, took 45 minutes to get in. It's a pretty short flight to go watch some NBA basketball for a relatively inexpensive price. Really good players. So we went. We fixed the schedule so that way we would go watch the Wembanyama debut, and then we
yeah,
could go right into the Lakers thing. And I think you hit it on the head. It worked out perfect. A lot of people left after the Spurs game, so we were able to get really close seats for the Laker game. And we're going to get into that in a second. I just want to bring this part up. That game, that Spurs game, was incredibly boring. Okay, it was a Charlotte. It was not a good game at all
no,
until Victor got yammed on, and everybody woke up after that.
yeah,
Obviously people were making fun of him, and he was having a rough start. But that game just went off the rails eventually at one point, and then once he got dunked on, then people were just I felt like they were kind of rooting for him to fail. He had 2 air balls or something like that. He looked kind of
yeah.
rough around the edges, but obviously he had a fantastic second game. I don't think you've seen him in person before. That was my first time seeing him in person.
Mm-hmm.
Any takeaways about just him as a
Very,
person?
he's like taller in person than you
Yeah,
think. Like you already go into it thinking this is going to be a long, lanky dude, and he's even bigger than that. Even there, like your ideas of whatever you think he is. I know he's coordinated as a basketball player, but that first game he looked very uncoordinated. Looked
yeah,
like he was learning his limbs, kind of understanding how to dribble against NBA physicality or whatever. And he looked a little rattled, and I understand that. Whole crowd came to see him. They filled up the arena for him. You could tell that kind of got him to double to rethink some stuff on the floor. But I thought in the second game he was awesome. Crowd was great, actually. Like they were ready for him. They cheered at anything he did, obviously,
yeah,
until he got dunked on by, I believe, Kai Jones was the one who got him on
yeah,
the lob. Was that correct?
yeah. It was
But
Kai. I think
yeah, but before
Charlotte's
that, like
third best center. He dunked it on him. That's what I was saying.
who
Go ahead.
who Castleton did a nice job against the other day. But
Yeah,
yeah, like they were cheering at every rebound, anything he did. The crowd was ready to explode, and he just couldn't offer that to him. I think he hit like a step back 3 when the game was kind of out of hand to finish the night. But it was cool to see him play, man. And I think this is obviously the starting point for him. He's going to be incredible. I think it's going to take some time, but it was nice to be there. And again, that's like what you go to summer league for. This is your first view of these like lottery talent players.
yeah,
Obviously, Wemby billed as one of the generational ones, and to be there, at the beginning of it is really cool. So,
yeah.
get out there if you can.
Yeah. So that's going to be our entire promo for Las Vegas Summer League. Highly
They don't
recommend
pay
people
us.
go.
Yeah,
It is also not. I had people message me, like, dude, how much did you pay to go to the game? It's like $45. Like, I mean, with ticket fees or whatever, it's like $60, but you can go for the
60,
whole
yeah.
day. And I think you can leave and come back later. Like if you want to go and do something for a couple hours and then come back for the night games. So I highly encourage people to go. It's a really fun time. And yeah, but obviously the main event was for us to get, last time we did a space, we sort of mentioned that the California Classic is like the preseason to the real Summer League, which is the Vegas Summer League. And, obviously there were some cool things to learn about the Lakers players, that the new guys that are on the team. But Vegas is where we really wanted to see if they'd be serious with the competition. But before we get into that, we need to discuss some news about D'Angelo Russell because there's some news that came out in regards to his contract details, which adds a little bit more interest in regards to like just kind of what happened with his contract situation and whatnot. And obviously we already got him at a fantastic number. I think about $18 million a year is where we've got him. But
Yep.
Keith Smith, I want to say is his name, of Spot Track, he tweeted out today that he's already D'Angelo Russell's already waived his no trade clause. When you sign a 1+1 or because of the 1 year bird rule, you can you essentially get a non-trade clause. It's part of
Right.
how that it's a CBA function, and you'd have to waive that. And so it's kind of a surprise that it's happened so early or it's been announced so early, but it's been announced. D'Lo's waived his no trade clause, and now we know exactly how much he's getting paid. Uh, what do you think about that?
Yeah,
What are your thoughts about
yeah.
that little blurb?
I thought that was strange. It's interesting that the Lakers would have enough leverage to ask for that, right? Because obviously D'Angelo Russell didn't come out and wave that off the goodness of his heart. Like he was
Hmm.
not, like, hey, yeah, trade me anywhere you want. I'll have no say in this. So I thought that was interesting, and I think that kind of showed his market, I guess, to where
Fair.
like the Lakers can ask for a no trade clause. And like D'Lo's smart. We've said that, on this podcast a
Yeah.
lot. He understands the game of the business, maybe more than most. He's been traded multiple times on contracts in their first year and their third year, whatever. So he understands that that's a very tradable deal, right? Player option on the next one. So basically, an expiring after this, it's at a like perfect, like mid-level salary, right at that
Yeah.
18 million mark. So I think they both understand the game. I don't think this is like, yeah, we're trading you for sure. This is not a, yeah, we're going to trade you. It just keeps the avenues open for the Lakers. We're like, hey, we're going to guarantee you the 37 million or whatever he signed for. If we do that, then the trade-off is that we get you have to waive your no trade cost. But what do you think? Put your conspiracy hat on. Like, do you think like this was just normal team player negotiation, or do you feel like the Lakers kind of have something set? Because I thought it was interesting. This came out. I don't remember the last player that's kind of waived their no trade clause on a 2-year deal. I don't remember that coming out. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, no. So I'm on board with you. Like, conspiracy hat is fully on. Like I'm sure he wanted a market that was better than what he got, right? Like he doesn't want to take sub $20 million. Like I
Right.
remember when we were talking offline, I said, Julius Randle had an All NBA year, and he could only get like 25 mil or something like that
Mm.
around from New York. Like I'm sure D'Lo probably thought like maybe he'd get something in that range. And I said, look, 25 million is still okay. I'm okay with giving him that. It's just the 30, 35 is just way too. I don't think it's reasonable for
Yeah.
to fit somebody in like that. So, I mean, I don't think too much out of the no trade clause. It's almost a formality thing because the one thing I will say is this: I remember a lot of trades, not a lot, but I remember trade situations where teams have done the deal, but they haven't gotten the okay from the player. Like the player hasn't waived their no trade clause, and they have to wait for that player to. I think it happened with JaVale. I want to say JaVale
Maybe.
was supposed to get traded, and we had to wait for him to like approve, like to waive his no trade clause for the deal to actually go through. So the fact that it's getting announced now makes like if I had to put a conspiracy hat on, maybe there's a little bit of between our front office and his agent that look if there's a deal that is a little bit
Mm.
better or a team that's a little bit better of a fit, maybe you guys get back a guy that you want, whatever it is. We won't be the reason that this deal gets held up. Like it'll be up to you to figure out what the deal
Yeah.
will go wherever it is, and I'm sure that the agent has some saying, we'd like D'Lo to go to this team or whatever it is. But like he clearly took the player option for the second year. I'm sure he wants to keep his avenues open if he can find another
Yep.
team and get paid even more money. Like typically these, D'Lo doesn't strike me as a guy who's like going to pass up money to stay in LA. You know what I mean? Like I think he'll be comfortable going
No.
wherever as long as he gets the money that he feels that he deserves. And that's more power to him. That's just how the business of basketball works. So that was sort of interesting to see. I don't think there's anything impending coming on. I think we have to wait like 60 days or something like that, if I remember correctly, before we can trade a
Sure.
player. So it won't be anything sooner or later. Lakers are still hard cap. So like the
Yep.
avenues of who we're trading for is going to be very limited. Like we won't have like a ton of room underneath the cap, or sorry, underneath the first apron to bring somebody back. So you're looking at guys that are like very close to salary as him. Who knows who that could be? And if somebody else goes with D'Lo, whatever ends up happening. So we'll see.
Yeah.
That's really all
Yeah.
I have.
Yeah, just like I think it's trade-offs, right? Maybe a player option here is a team option if we don't get the no trade clause, whatever, stuff like that goes back and forth. We'll see. And again, D'Lo's on what, team 4 if you count the Lakers twice
Yeah.
in his career, so he understands the game, understands the business. And
Well, if you got the Lakers twice, that'd be team 5. It'd be
team 5.
Lakers, Brooklyn, Golden State, Minnesota,
Oh,
Lakers.
right. Yeah.
He's been traded 4 times in his career. He hasn't even
That's
hit 10 years yet. That's kind of
that's a
crazy.
ton early on in his career, and that matures you, I think, right? That you
Yeah.
understand that you get a little cold because like you don't set your feet somewhere because you understand the business and he understands the type of player he is, where he can be traded at any time. So I think it's a good deal, for both sides. Like I think if a deal comes up, the Lakers will obviously look into it, and D'Angelo controls his situation, really, right? If he doesn't like it, he
Yeah.
can leave in the 6 months or whatever that he's a free agent at his choosing, or if he doesn't have a good year, he can opt in. So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting, nugget that came out today with D'Lo and his contract situation, which again just gives the Lakers more maneuverability and in the trade market in a few months. But that's obviously in a while. That's months from now, hopefully on a team that's good and winning, where
Yeah.
that's a very sidecar conversation and not
Yeah.
at the forefront if the Lakers are where they think they'll be.
Yeah, I agree. So let's get into it. The main event, the main topic that we wanted to discuss, the first two Summer League games for the Las Vegas Summer League have concluded. And it looks like, this is very early, very reactionary, but we wouldn't be Laker fans if we weren't jumping the gun a little early and being a little reactionary. We try and temper it down a little bit, at least for our conversations. Sure. But the Lakers' young guys look pretty good. And I actually, when I posted the space originally, I put the wrong name. I put Castleton, Fino, Lewis, and Fudge, and I meant Hodge. Demoya Hodge was that because he's the other two-way guy that we have.
Hodge has been fun too. I'm not mad at that. We could...
and yeah, definitely, yeah. But all of these guys have had pretty great or solid to great games. And obviously, the guy that we will be discussing, and we should probably just discuss him now so we can get him out of the way. Mm-hmm. Max Christie looks fantastic. He has looked like he's been working on his game. He's been working on his body. There's probably some of it is just him growing up too at the same time because he's a young guy. Max Christie has looked really good. And yes. We were at the game, the first game on Friday night when he had that bang out on the Warriors Center. I forgot who it was. It might have been Santos. I forgot who it was. But he had that dunk, woke everybody up. That was a back and forth game. It's still very entertaining. Max Christie has looked great, and he looks like he can contribute to the rotation now. So if the Lakers are going to give him minutes, he might be able to do that now. What's been your takeaway on Max Christie, like from what you've seen so far?
So I feel like I told way too many people in Vegas this, but my first question to anyone I met was like, what's your thought on second-year players in Vegas, right? And I think that's like a really fun question that I like to ask because it gives me the perspective on how they view Summer League or the seriousness of it. I think it's important for second-year guys to at least look good, right? That's the floor to me. You have to at least look like you can play at this level. And a few guys like James Bouknight, not to name names, but like have really kind of struggled. Wish best of luck to him. But I think like it's concerning when you see second-year guys not able to perform at least a baseline level. And Max has looked awesome. I think like if you're going to put it like a checklist of like what you want out of a second-year guy, I think he's kind of shown that a couple more ball handling, right? Showing a little bit more skills on the ball, able to shoot jumpers off the dribble. And that stuff, Vinay, that's not going to translate, right? Like he's not gonna come into the league and shoot threes off of drop coverages. Like that's not stuff that he's going to do. But it's like the confidence and the willing to take those. And like, look, I've worked on this, and now the game speed has gone down from like at 100 in the league to like 85 at Summer League. Like I can get to my shot here. And I said, before Summer League started, stuff I'd look for is like, can you get to the line? Can you bully guys to your spot? Can you get your shot off? And he's done all those things. Like when he wants to get a shot off, he can. He has all those fadeaways as well that he's gone up. The catch and shoot stuff looks great. Like his catch and shoot numbers are really good in Summer League. And I think he's been physical, able to get to the rim. He's rebounded well. He's playmade, and he's been the guy they've gone to when they needed baskets, and he's able to, come through for them. So I think he's looked as good as you'd like to see from a second-year guy. We'll see where he is in the rotation. We got a couple wings that are probably going to get their shot before he does. I think he's looked great. What have you seen?
Yeah. So before I give my thoughts, I just want to say there were people on our timeline, not to say that they're wrong, saying that Max was going to be like the next KCP for the Lakers. And I don't think that's going to be the guy. That might be actually putting a limit on how talented he can actually be. He's very capable of putting the ball on the floor. That's something, KCP was good, straight line driver off of pump fakes and all that kind of stuff, or coming off the screens. But Max has some real like ISO chops when he has the ball in his hands. And, I feel like both games we got a chance to see that with, him show flashes of that. He had like a left-handed finish over two guys, in the very first game that looked really nice. He's getting to that pull-up jumper when he needs to. He's the one creating the contact on the collisions when he's going to the rim. He's not trying to avoid the physicality of the game. It's more like he's bringing the physicality to his style of play. So it's just like those are like the things that I always expect, like the first year player to if he starts checking off the boxes on those sort of things, it's like okay, he's ready to be a contributor because he wants to play at an NBA pace. He wants to play at an NBA level of physicality. I remember when we watched him his rookie year when he was getting like spot starts for the Lakers and whatnot. Like he was doing a really nice job using like an escape dribble and working in space in the mid range to get shots. So a lot of flashes. Obviously, some 3-and-D stuff he also showed too as well. Sorry, not 3-and-D, but catch and shoot threes that he showed as well. But it's like I wanted to see him be the aggressor. When you get the ball in your hands, will you do something that's not scripted? Like will you just pump fake and drive? Like I don't want to see that. I want to see you. Like I don't know. And sometimes it's hard to explain to fans. It's just I think like me and you were sitting together, so it's just like you could. I mean, I know I'm not sure if you got sick and tired of it, but like you could literally hear me talking to myself, like, oh, okay, like I can see how Max read that closeout to figure out which way to go and stuff like that. So it's like you could tell that he's doing it more now. You could tell that he's like really reading how to attack the defense as opposed to just I'm going to wait till the ball comes to me and then I'm just going to either shoot it or I'm going to pass it or drive and kick it, whatever it is. So I think that's really cool to see. It's also very clear based on the actions that the summer league team was running that they are trying to get Max a lot of touches to get him used to being a serious contributor. So I'm with you. I think like guys like Cam Reddish are definitely going to get a chance on the roster, but I won't be surprised if Max is like, a steady contributor or getting a steady amount of minutes for the Lakers. And it may not be at the 3. It may be at like the 2, or they may have him play. He can bring the ball up. I'm not saying he's a point guard, but he might be able to bring the ball up. Like he seems like he can play the 1, 2, or the 3 for the Lakers, on ball, off ball. It really doesn't matter with all the ball handlers we have. So I'm going to be very fascinated to see how that works out for him.
That's what I was going to say. So the offensive stuff, obviously the on-ball creation has gotten all the attention, right? Through the legs, and I'm as guilty of it as anyone posting those. Like those are my favorite things to watch from him. But I think defensively is like what I'm most excited about him for during the season. I feel like he's bigger in person, Vinay, than you think. Like on TV, I think it doesn't come off as that, but you watch him, he's a big guard.
He's a big guard, yeah.
Yeah, they said he's up to like 205 pounds or something. He was like at 195, I think, at the last year's summer league. He's put on like 10 pounds of muscle, and you can really see that. And he uses that to his advantage, right? He's not just big. Not saying a lot of players are, but he's not big for nothing. Like he uses those. He can get his shoulder into you, and those are stuff that like you just didn't see last year. And like him manipulating defenses instead of just reading them as you're talking about. But the defensive stuff, to me, they had him on Brandon Miller, who's again hasn't had a great summer league, so I'm not sure how much to put into that. But Brandon Miller is a good like isolation scorer at least, and Max was able to kind of stay in front of him and chase him off the screens, and that's the stuff to me that's fascinating. Like you look at our rotation, and to me like that's where he can fill in, right? That strong guard who can also move his feet on the perimeter. That's the stuff like we don't really have that. Like if you look at our guards and Gabe Vincent, Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, none of those are. Austin's probably maybe the most physical along with Gabe, but like Max has the size on both of them, at least the weight on both of them as well. So I think that's a place he can fit in right away. That backup 2, whoever's not playing out of those 3, I think he can come in and play that spot. And I think he's gonna get his shot at least after Cam, obviously, and maybe the other guys get their shot first. But I feel like Max is gonna come in and at least fight for that rotation spot in preseason. And he's shown the flashes to be that.
Yeah, I was gonna say I could definitely see him being he could be another one of those guys that has like a really good camp just because he knows that he's gonna get the opportunities. Like we've talked about like one of the human elements of basketball is like, and we've actually seen role players, like veteran role players say this, that like when they don't know that they're getting like a set amount of minutes to be able to do work, it actually screws with their game and their ability to stay focused or their ability to be connected to the game. Mentally and physically, whatever it is, and performance wise. And so maybe, like if the coaching staff is telling Max, look, no, you're going to be part of this rotation. We're going to try and get 20 or more minutes out of you, but you've got to be ready. Like, in his mind, he may be like, I got to get out there and I've got to make an impact one way or another. And we saw it last year, even as a rookie, he was doing a fabulous job defensively, in front of guys, chasing people around the screens. And we thought the offense was like the raw part of his game, the jump shot, the consistency of the jump shot, how he got to it. But now it looks like the offense is kind of caught up to what it is and whatnot. So it's like now we get a chance to see him put it together. It's probably going to be off the bench, and it'll be against bench guys. But I think last year's experience, he's playing next to LeBron, who has an amazing work ethic. He's playing, with AD. These are guys he's familiar with. Like there's no confusion about what his role and what's expected of him. It's just when he gets the ball, make an impact, do something impactful. So I'm looking forward to it. He may be yet another feather in the cap of Joey and Jesse Buss, man. Like honestly, like there's no real other way. Like I don't think we can give them enough flowers for the decision making that they've done with some of these picks. But we should get into it. Max is phenomenal. Another guy that's been really, really good for the Lakers, who had an outstanding game, an outstanding second game, also is repped by Austin Reeves' agent, Colin Castleton. Yes. We signed him on a two-way. He specifically, everybody knows the story already. He specifically asked teams not to draft him so he could go to the Lakers. He has looked really good. Like you and I were talking about what we need out of a big guy, right? Not necessarily like a big guy that plays next to LeBron, but like in the modern NBA as we see it, what do your big men need to be able to do, right? Because back in the day, the big man needs to be able to finish at the rim. He needs to be able to block a ton of shots. He needs to be physically imposing, like a menace in the paint, right? The Shaqs, the Greg Ostertag types, whoever, the big dudes. But in today's NBA, because it's faster, there's more threes, all that sort of stuff, that's changed. And the usage of a big man in the offensive end and the defensive end has changed. And I think you and I both said that, mobility as a big man is crucial. Like if you're a big dude, you got to be able to move your feet, offense and defense, whether you're rim running, whether you're screening, whether you're running DHO, whatever, or running in transition. And this kid, Colin Castleton, looks really good. He looks great. He moves around really great. So I tweeted it out, and you can take it from there. Like he seems to me like a very lightweight Zubac. He's not as heavy as Zubac was. He's not a bruiser, but he's much more agile. He's much more nimble, much more mobile, and he's got some real nice passing skills. What were your takeaways from on Colin and what you've seen out of him?
So again, I probably said this enough times where in Vegas where people were looking like, how much have you had to drink? But I kept saying, man, like I think he's like there's cap, machinations that have to go with this, and maybe you can explain a little bit more to me. But like I feel like he should be on the roster. Like I think he should be one of the 14th or 15th man or whatever it is. We can get to the centers in another podcast. They don't move me, if that's the way to say it. Like I watch Castleton and I think that's just an NBA player. You hit it on the head. I think modern bigs, like if you don't have touch around the rim and you can't like defend the rim, then I'm not sure where you're playing at. And I think he does both in a really interesting way. The Zubac comparisons, like I was there for Zubac's first summer league as well. Met him at the MGM buffet, by the way. It was a funny thing. Went up to him while he was eating crab legs and he let me take a picture with him. Looked like absolutely like he hasn't aged a day from that. But like you watched Zoo back then, and he was 19, Renee, when he came to us, right? Yeah. Like a kid. Castleton's 24, I believe. Like, so he's played like 5 years in college, right? Yeah. And I think one of them is the COVID year. That guy has more of a sense of, obviously he's going to weight train and work on his body and do all those things that, players do when they get to the league, but he has more of a sense of what he can do. And he has more of a sense of who he is as a basketball player. Right. And I think those are extremely valuable. And that's really the market inefficiency that the Lakers have tapped into. It's these like 4-year college guys who like can play right away that these other teams kind of pass on by, right? Because they're all hitting for upside. Right. All these GMs have to go to their ownership and be like, hey, in 3 years, this guy could be good. That's a very easier sell than like, hey, this guy can play now. Like, you better be right in 3 months, right? That's a different sell. So I understand why these guys fall, and we've gone through it of why he fell to us. But I just think like he has the ability to push the pace. You see that. You see his passing kinds of instincts on display. He's a really good short roll big as well. Yeah. Lakers are running their offense through him. He has a bunch of really nice post passes. And then, like, I think he started out 6 for 6 or something in like this against Charlotte. And it's all those little flip shots, right? And that, to me, that's the stuff that translates. If you have touch, right? Like, you're not going to shoot 80% or whatever in the league. Right. All that stuff, all those little flip shots. He has a really nice, we'll talk about JHS later, Coach Shafino. but Hochefino's a guy that loves ball screens, and Castleton is really smart in those actions, knows where to
Yes.
screen, rolls right next to him, right? Rolls laterally where JHS is driving, just understands how to give him passing angles, and he catches and he has contact finishes. And my favorite thing, Vinay, is his motor. Like, you don't usually see
Yeah.
skill bigs with motor, and I feel like he has both of those. And there's like an edge to him. He's like talking shit to other players, and to me, that stuff like matters. Do you have a competitive nature to you? And not that talking shit means you have a competitive nature, but like I think like those are stuff to me that's really shined out. And I think that's a guy that, look, he's not going to be your backup center for 80 games. Like, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying look at the bigs on the market, and like you tell me, how far the gap is that between him and those guys, and I don't think it's as far as it's being shown.
For sure.
So like I'm in on Castleton. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I'm on board with you. We did get a question to the space where somebody was asking, and I think you kind of mentioned it. Will Castleton be able to be like a rotation piece for the Lakers like year one? And I don't know what the answer to that question is, because I mean, if they need to use him, they'll use him, but I'm sure that they don't want to have to like. I'm sure they don't want to have to like redshirt him completely if they think he can be impactful. I'm not sure, just because of the cost of it. They may just keep him on a 2-way contract just because it's cheaper. And obviously we are hard capped, so this is not like a Genie Bus doesn't want to spend money thing. This is more like we need to preserve as much money below the first apron as we can. Go for it.
Well, I was gonna say, can you answer this? Because I think it's been a little bit confusion around it.
Yeah.
Can another team come and sign Castleton, I guess, if he's on a 2-way with us?
No, I don't believe they can. 2-ways they belong to you. So the 2-ways stay with the Lakers. It's when the guy is on the summer league roster, that person can be signed by like any team to my knowledge. So that's my understanding, because I've never seen somebody take a 2-way player, sign a 2-way player from another team before. But I have seen guys that lose their 2-way spot and get sent to the summer league teams. Those players then get signed to another team. They can sign with like some other team.
Because I've gotten a few different answers from that. And like, I mean, like if another team wanted to. Yeah. If another team wanted to give Castleton like an actual roster spot, would his 2-way with the Lakers kind of prohibit that, I guess, is the better question. I think you said it would. Okay. All right.
I believe so, yeah. But yeah, I mean, Lakers could easily remedy that by just saying, okay, we'll just give you a roster spot. Because they'll most likely keep that 15th spot open anyways if they really want to. But again, just thinking about the fact that, he told teams not to take him because he wanted to go to LA. The fact that we're talking about him, fans are talking about him. Again, we've said it many, many times before. There's no better marketing machine in the NBA than Laker fans. Like, we will make you a household name, no matter how big or small your impact is, as long as it's positive, obviously. But yeah, I like your point about his motor. Watching him, he seemed like every single time he touched the ball, he was always looking to set up a DHO with somebody on the floor. He wasn't like looking around, just trying to make something happen out of nothing. He seemed like he was very comfortable playing that role. He was delivering great screens. Early on, I would say, like I think the first couple of games in the California Classic, he got called for offensive fouls trying to run that DHO action or just set high pick and roll screens with Fino and with Max Christie and other guys. And it feels like in the Vegas games, that kind of cleaned itself up. So it's a great example of just once they got better chemistry with each other, understanding how each player likes to play, it got much easier. And he's shown some passing chops. Last game he had a nice pass, I think, to Moyhaj for a layup off of a back cut or something like that. I think his game is probably more finesse than Zoo's was, right? Zoo is a real bruiser. Like he is still a bruiser now. And I think just kind of the way the NBA is now, like you get a guy like, let's say hypothetically Castleton is playing, LeBron's going to be at the rim. AD is going to be at the rim. So you want a guy who can make himself available in space if needed and whatnot. The one downside to him, I would say, is he is a little light. And because he's a little light, it's a little difficult for him, I think, to be like a true rim defender. Like you think of him like, I'm trying to think of a guy like, I try not to do like the white guy to white guy comparisons because it just seems so cliche. But like you think, but that's what I was gonna say. Like you think of, I think Cody may be a true 7-footer, but you think of like Mason Plumlee or something like that. You think of a guy like him who can be physical, but he's a little light. Like I've seen Mason get bullied a couple times before, just because that's just his, the level of physicality he plays with. I could see situations where Castleton gets bullied, if he gets serious minutes against a real traditional center. But a lot of teams don't play traditional backup centers anymore. They're playing like 6'9" guys, 6'10" guys. They're like power forwards. So maybe he can be a backup five or eat some minutes for us.
Right, and that's basically mainly my point here. And I think whenever people talk about centers, they immediately go to Jokic and Embiid.
Right.
And look, those guys, like, obviously you need to play them through the regular season. They're obviously Jokic, obviously a guy you need to go through in the playoffs. There are also 82 games in the regular season that you need to survive through, right? And if you look at most teams' second unit per se, it's usually an undersized center or a power forward masquerading as a center, right? Like I think like you do need a center in that spot. We lost games to Houston because we started Rui and Vando, at the 4-5, and there were also other reasons we lost those games, which we won't get into here. But I do think you need just a center with a high motor. And how I see it, Vinay, when I watch him, first of all, with the fouls, Summer League, they give you 10 fouls, and that works for the player. That also works for the ref, right? They know they can call you on some ticky-tack stuff, in my opinion. So I give a little bit of a leash on those. But to me, I think like he's usually in the right spot. Like in our drop coverages, he understands angles. He's still getting a ton of block shots in Summer League because he knows where the ball's going. He has a good sense. And again, he's played a ton of basketball, ton of organized basketball in a higher level in college. He just understands angles. And I feel like I can get a guy like that. Not I personally, but the team can get a guy like that in the weight room, right? Get his strength up over a guy who comes in maybe who just has the body but has no real. That's usually you see, right? You see these super athletic freak centers that bounce team to team because they just don't understand the intricacies of defense and where they need to be on the floor. And I feel like if you have a guy with that base, I can get to the strength part at least in some sense. He's not going to be whatever the bruising centers are in the league, because then you probably lose some of that finesse, which is a trade-off that all players have to kind of think about when they're making decisions. But I just feel like that's a guy you can invest in. And again, I'm not saying he's going to start 50 games for us. I mean, that'd be absurd. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like he looks like a guy like you can throw in for 10 to 15 minutes if you need some center minutes, for next season. And obviously the Lakers are going to look for another center. I understand that. They'll have someone a little bit more experience ahead of Hayes, hopefully. I think Castleton, again, just looks like a guy that should have been drafted, honestly. Like that's all you're looking for in undrafted second round. If Castleton becomes Mason Plumlee, you've won. Like that's
a great pick to get as an undrafted guy.
That's an insane outcome. Yeah. If he becomes Zubac, that's an insanely good outcome. Sadly we won't bear the fruit of, but like that's a great outcome.
Championship. That was Magic Johnson's fumble. We somehow still got a championship. That's
man. Mike Muscala did not help one bit for that championship. I'm not giving that part up. But yeah.
Yeah, so Castleton's been really good. Max has been really good. So we should talk about our first round guy. Fino has really started to figure it out. And, I know you and I discussed a long time ago about, adding new guys in positional. I honestly think that the two most difficult positions to learn in today's NBA are the center spot and the point guard spot. And they have the most difficult learning curves because both of those roles in the modern NBA are not plug and play. You have to actually know what your teammates like to do and what they're good at, what they're not good at. You have to be able to read very quickly whether they're having a good game from whatever they normally do or whether they're doing other stuff. Like the thing, like seeing Colin be good and now seeing Fino start to kind of figure it out when he's running pick and roll actions, setting guys up in transition, making plays for his teammates, being good on defense. Like, again, another guy that's I would encourage Laker fans, if you get a chance to go watch a Laker game, hopefully Fino is playing in some of these games, go see how big he actually is. He is not like he's physically a big guard. Like he's not slight by any means. He reminds me a lot of like that Jason Kidd kind of build, like a physical, tough guard who can absorb collisions, can probably defend both guard spots with some regularness and competitiveness. Fino has looked good. Obviously, everybody's waiting to see just kind of what his offensive output kind of looks like. He's shown some touches in the mid range. He's shown playmaking chops. But I think, and this is something that we discussed, like I think his immediate impact will probably come on the defensive end because he is physical. Like he is like
Yeah.
I remember I told you like I remember it's like a thing that I think NBA fans I know I do it. It's like so when I looked at Colin, I was like, this guy looks a lot like Zubac. So then when I was watching Fino, I was like, defensively kind of looks like Lonzo. Like Lonzo was
Yes.
physical, he was big. Obviously, Fino, I don't think he has exactly the same measurables. He's not as tall as Lonzo was. Lonzo did some fantastic stuff instinctually, like the ball hawking, passing lane stuff. I haven't seen that out of Fino just yet, but he reminds me a lot defensively of just like that physical guard who could be physical without fouling and move his feet and stuff like that. And I was just like, if we could get that out of him and maybe get some, first year guard, let him figure out the playmaking, let him figure out when he needs to actually shoot. And how he needs to score. Like I know he's had some rough finishes, like games where it's looked really rough. That was a thing with Lonzo his first year. Lonzo was like breaking layups. Like I was like, dude, you're too big to be missing these layups. Like this is crazy. But once he figured it out, he got much better. Fino kind of you squint and you kind of turn your head sideways. You can see some of the defensive stuff out of Fino that mimics Lonzo. What do you think about that comparison? Does that make some sort of sense, or am I crazy?
Oh no, absolutely. You know what's crazy? I was thinking, why does he remind me so much of Lonzo? And do you remember Lonzo used to play with the afro as well? So Lonzo used to also have the afro. Yeah. So I'm like, they do really like again, like being Lonzo, it's tough. Lonzo, one of the best kind of feel players I think that has come through here. But I think Fino has a lot of that in his game. He's very particular with his dribbles, right? He doesn't waste a lot of dribbles to me. He's not like through the leg 50 times, right? Same with Lonzo. Lonzo obviously didn't have the handle coming in. It wasn't like an elite handle. So Lonzo's dribble as well, right? It was very meticulous, had to like be very particular with how he runs pick and roll. And you see that with JHS as well. Doesn't play with the ball a lot, right? It's ball screen, move, and then read the defense and make the decision. And I think that's really where the Lonzo stuff to me comes out, where like he understands who's open. The no-look passes are starting to get starting to increase because he's starting to feel himself and the flash is starting to show in his game, and just looks very mature, a very mature game. Understands like he's not coming out in summer league. Oh, the thing on me in the draft was I can't shoot, so I need to prove to everyone that I can shoot. And I love that. Like that's not really what he's done. He's really picked his spots. And you talked about for a point guard, that's tough. Like understanding where to get baskets. Understanding also that this is Max Christie's team and he's the guy that probably needs more on ball touches, like all that stuff to me. And you could tell in the California Classic was going through his head. In Vegas though, I think he's been extremely solid. Like the 3-point shot comes and goes. He hit a few step back ones. He hasn't really, I think, hit a catch and shoot 3 yet. He's not really taking those either. But just understands his game. I think he already has like an NBA skill. That mid-range jumper I think will translate. I think that's something that he's lives off of. And in the pick and roll, he's run so many pick and rolls. You can tell like that's just in his blood. Like he'll come up, and even if he has a matchup that's advantageous, he'll just be like, hey, I need a screen. Like he needs a screen to get into his comfort zone, and once he's in a ball screen, he's like, okay, they're chasing me over the top. I know this is my read and I can get this guy a corner 3, or I know the skip pass is here. And that's like really nice to have out of a 20-year-old point guard who's already built physically. And again, I think he's more I don't think he's gonna come in and be ready to play next year. Like I think he's gonna be a little bit more of a learning curve in terms of readjusting to real NBA defense and how guards pressure you at the point of attack and teams starting to make him shoot jumpers and all that. But again, just been really solid. Like hasn't had like a 30-point game or anything like that, but just comes out and I feel like plays winning basketball. That's all you can ask for him.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like I didn't see like, typically out of the point guards, you expect to see like a lot of bad turnovers and just mistakes and stuff like that. And he seems like he's been very poised, very, very in control, just kind of with the way that he's played. He's using that floater. Like it hasn't been automatic just yet, but he's testing it out to see like, okay, at what pace can I take this? At what, like how far in do I actually go? How are rim defending guys actually defending me? And obviously this is just summer league, so it's going to change. It's going to be different once he gets into the NBA. That'll be another adjustment that all of these guys will have to do. But again, you could see it materializing. I think that's the best part about just summer league and just being a fan of the team. And just, you and I both said we really, really hope the Lakers keep the picks. They don't trade the picks. I was
praying.
Yeah, and it's just like, I know, obviously, if they could trade him for an impact guy, that they would consider it. They would still do it now if they could.
Sure.
But that didn't materialize. But it feels like we've got a guy that you can see how he can help impact the team in some form. Even if he can't do it offensively just yet, Max, I feel like I could trust him defensively. Fino, I feel like to some degree I can trust him defensively. Colin, I can trust to do what we need him to do. So it's like it's really nice to see. You know, I'm going to be out in Atlanta in a couple of weeks, so I'm gonna hunt down Rich, so then that way I can get him to talk about Fino a little bit more. But it's been like I don't know how to. I don't want to sound like a zealot, but I'm like very excited to see what these young guys can do. Like honestly, like we haven't had any influx of youth for a while. It's always been like one guy. It's been Caruso and then Reeves, and like now we have a couple of dudes that we can kind of look at and we can like watch them and go, okay, we could see how this guy could possibly help off the bench. Even if he can't help this year, we could see how he can do it. And then the fact that Max Christie looks so much better compared to his initial foray in his rookie season, like it just kind of gives you like a little bit of realistic, unrealistic, who knows how to say it, but you know, we're fans. But it gives you some belief that there's something that can come out of it.
Exactly. I remember we were talking about with the MLE how like that gets you a different tier of player, right? When you're going for, I felt the same way about like a 17th pick, right? You go from 17th to like 30. Usually, I'm not a draft guy, but like usually like those picks usually get you into a different tier of player, which is why I was so adamant that like I want to keep this player. And we kind of looked at the lay of the land and we're like, yeah, I mean, Royce O'Neal, I guess. Right? Like Dorian Finney-Smith.
Who just got guaranteed today. He got his full $9 million contract, I think. They had to guarantee his whole deal today. Yeah.
Very nice. And then Dorian Finney-Smith. I mean, okay, like those are NBA rotation, I guess, wings. But I'd like to give this, scouting department a chance to really draft a guy that they believe could be not a star, but like has that type of talent. They obviously believe that in Jalen Hood-Schifino. So it was nice to be able to pick one. And look, I was looking at our last year's summer league. I mean, really it was guys that weren't drafted, right? Because that's other than Max Christie, who was the 35th pick. Again, he's probably a lottery talent the following year, but last year he wasn't, right? He went 35th. Other guys on the team were Scottie Pippen Jr., again, undrafted. Cole Swider, again, undrafted. So like the young talent crop pool just wasn't what it was. THT obviously was the guy that they invested in, and it didn't work out. I think though there's other factors why that happened.
There's some politics that play with
there's
that.
And some fit and situations that didn't manifest itself. But like again, like that's why it's nice. I think a nice influx of youth to a team that already has like guys in their mid 20s, that are ready to win. I think it's nice that you can throw in an influx of youth that can play now, like Castleton, and we'll see with Hood-Schifino, and obviously Max Lewis, who we'll get into, I'm sure, in the next segment. But it's exciting, man. Having young talent, and I think that's one of the best parts of being a fan, like you just said, like being able to grow with players, right? That it's not so transactional where every like year it's just a reset button. Like you can invest and grow with some of these guys, and I think we have a chance to with some of these young guys.
Yeah, and I mean, if these guys end up being impact guys, like like we think they are, the best part about them is that it's the one thing that every human being loves. It's cheap labor. Like you get them on like rookie deals, and they're super helpful. Hey, look, man, we have to be a little realistic here. If you could get an impact guy on a rookie scale salary or a second round pick salary, like that's amazing. And I'm sure our franchise is probably like, yeah, hell yeah, we can get guys at this level. I'm sure we'd love. Any team would love.
I remember like in the 2018 summer league, I got killed for this post. Okay. And maybe I was wrong for it at the time, but Josh Hart was cooking. Okay. In summer league. If you remember this, won MVP that year in summer league. And I tweeted out, would you rather have Josh Hart I think Josh Hart was on some 4 years, some cheap contract, right? He's a second round
rookie.
I forgot it was like maybe 4 year, like 20 or something like that. Or Gary Harris at like this is like Gary Harris. So this is Gary Harris at the time starting for the Denver Nuggets, okay?
Right.
But like he just I think he just got like his 4 year 90 or whatever it was, the big contract. And that's a good contract. Gary Harris people forget Gary Harris was good.
Yeah, I got killed. Legit 3D guy. Yeah.
I got killed for that, all right? Like, are you crazy? Josh Hart at Summer League. The following season, I believe they traded Jerry Harris to Orlando because he just stopped playing well. And I always think about that. But with the 4 year guys, if you can get them on, good contracts, like maybe this is a good transition. But Max Lewis getting the 4-year deal, right? Maxwell Lewis getting the 4-year deal from the Lakers.
Yes,
I could see that being a steal in a few years, right? He's what 4 years, 7 million or something like that. I think
yeah,
is the
very. My first 2 years are guaranteed. I think third year is partially guaranteed. The Lakers can just
right.
guarantee it if they want.
Exactly.
Again, he has looked good too as well. We might as well just jump into him. Like he has looked pretty solid. Like you and I were both saying we'll get to the guy that was taking his looks in a second. But you and I were both saying like, we should probably give it to this kid a little bit more because he's pretty good, dude. Like, the highlight, I think, Pickup Hoop on Twitter is great follow for Laker highlights and stuff like that. He posted that jab step pullback jumper that he did on the baseline to Brandon Miller. That was nice. Like he's one of those guys. Again, last time we spoke, I said every person that I've talked to that I trust that follows college basketball thinks this kid should be a lottery talent. And he has looked like he could tell, like, once he starts making like one, like if he hits 2 shots, like he's in a mode, like he's ready to go. But obviously it's summer league, so there's a little bit of democracy with what's going on, and we're trying to feature Christie a little bit more too as well.
Sure.
But Lewis looks like he can be an impact guy. We just have to see what the volume looks like with him. He's made some really nice reads. He's already using up, like, teams for some reason are jumping on every single one of his
flying at him
catch and shoot attempts, and he's just pump faking through all of them and attacking the rim. He's not like what we were saying about Max, the other Max. Like he's not settling for what the defense gives him. He's like, no, I'm going to go get the shot that I want. So if I have to pump fake to get you out of position or jab fake to get you out of position, that's what I'm going to do. So it's just like that's already advanced. Like Christie is year 2 doing it. Maxwell Lewis is doing it year 1. So it's like, okay, his offensive game may be already a little bit more advanced than we realize, the most fans realize. And so he's looked good, a lot of potential. I'd love to see him get the ball more, so I can see what he's really about.
I don't know if you agree, but I feel like he's a guy. I remember watching, not saying he's going to become him. Austin's one of the most unprecedented stories. Like, I need people to remember that. Like, it's like if I always say this, but it's like if Demoy Hodge was like the 3rd best player on the conference final team in 2 years. Like it's very unprecedented stuff. But it reminds me of, I remember watching Austin his first summer league. I'm like, this guy just understands the game. Like he wasn't dominating, he wasn't average like 18 a game or anything like that. It was just like, he understands when the guy closes out at him, like what he's supposed to do. He understands what pass is supposed to be made here. He understands when to shoot. And you can see Maxwell Lewis, like, I think they have him in a more of an off-ball role than we'd like. Just maybe an extreme off-ball role than we'd like. Pass just, swing it to the corner once.
Yeah, for the people that don't know, Raj was sitting there, and he was every single time Maxwell Lewis ran directly to the corner and stood there the whole time. Raj out loud would be like, maybe Max should get the ball here. maybe you should swing it to Max here. And I was just like, yeah, they probably should, but they're not going to because there's other guys that want to get their shots off.
One time in the corner, Cole. Just once. But no, I think he has a lot of fluidity to his game. Looks very coordinated. Like you see a lot of guys just usually at that size, you don't really have that handle mixed with the fluidity with the scoring ability, and the jump shot just looks pure, right? He doesn't look like a big guy that can shoot. He looks like a shooter that happens to be big. It's a different kind of comparison there. And you talk about the attacking closeouts, long strides to the rim, all these kind of finishes at the basket. And again, I think a guy that's just going to look better with better players around him. Like you could see him cut and be like, hey, I'm open, but there's just not enough passers around to get him the basketball. And when he gets it inside, he has like huge long arms, can dunk from the halfway from the free throw line and stuff like that. And he just looks exciting, man. I'd like to see him get his game opened up a little bit more. We'll see maybe later in summer league, but like they have him all types of actions. He's running like off down screens and like coming off like a guard. Like he understands how to use those actions like a guard, catches in, has like pass backs to Castleton and comes off and drives to the basket, gets fouled and stuff like that. I'm so excited for him. And the Lakers understood that, inked him to a 4-year deal. I believe their first 4-year deal for a second rounder.
I'm assuming they used the second round exception, which is something that's new, which we lovingly in the salary cap chats, we call it the Rob Pelinka exception because Rob was notorious for only doing those 2-year deals. Obviously he did with Austin and he did it with TH with tail into as well.
Yep.
So we call it the Rob Pelinka exception, and he used that exception on Maxwell Lewis. And so, again, like they could, if Max pops off for whatever reason, the Lakers have some injuries and he stepped into a role. I would say like a lot of people are telling me that a lot of scouts are telling me that like his offensive technical skill, his ability is already pretty advanced. And so I think you can kind of see that already in the summer league. He just doesn't get the volume of touches just yet. And, before we get to the reason why he's not getting those, we just want to touch on one more guy who kind of who made a name for himself a little bit based on a post-game comment that he said. D'Moi Hodge has been pretty solid. He is the other two-way guy for the Lakers. He has not been afraid to shoot threes. He's actually been really nice defensively. And after the last game, I don't know if it was Jovan who got the quote from him, but he said he modeled his game after KCP.
All right, let me stop right there, Vinay. Are you buying? Go. Is that just grabbing Laker fans' hearts like by the actual organ, or is that like an actual thing you think? I'm gonna ask you.
Okay, so it could go.
Because if it was to grab by the actual heart organ, like he did a great job.
He did a great job for sure.
That absolutely just hit right at the nerve. You know what I mean? Like it hit right where it was supposed to hit.
Yeah, I did all subsections of the Lakers fans, like their eyes, just a tear just came down their eyes as they heard him say that. So I'll say this: some of it could be just him knowing like kind of who it is. It could also be him just trying to send a message to like the front office, like, look, I can fill this role that you guys used to have that helped you win a championship. So it's smart on his part. I feel like that's probably not the first time he said that. I feel like he's probably said that in an interview to Rob or to guys like, or they may have said it to him. That's the role they want him to fill, the type of player they need out of him. So it could be either way. It could be gassing us up, gassing up Laker fans. But I will say this, like typically you see rookie players who want to make a name for themselves compare themselves to somebody much higher. Like they try to compare themselves to like probably somebody who's like a little more unrealistic that they think their skill set kind of matches. And I was having this conversation in a group chat that like not enough players, rookies, that are not like the top 5 pick rookie guys, not enough rookies come into the league like trying to model their games after role players. And they don't realize that you can have a longer career as a role player because that's your real ceiling by acknowledging it early. So if D'Moi Hodge is coming out and saying, I can be KCP, then, and that's what he aspires to be, and that's what his ceiling is, maybe a slightly better version of KCP, because he seems to be able to put the ball on the floor a little bit better than KCP too. Like, I'm all for it. Like, whether it's gas or like, but look, dude, I've watched him. He had a couple of plays where he took like KCP used to take like these really weird looking layups where they'd be like almost like scoop layups. And I'd be like, dude, you're way too athletic to take these layups. And like sometimes he would miss them just because he'd just be like weird. Like he had that bad habit where he'd take off too early, like all the time. He'd like take off from like the free throw line thinking he was going to dunk it and it wouldn't even be close and he'd like miss the layup. But D'Moi has like this weird unorthodox layup style that he takes. So like I remember KCP being that way, but the way he shoots threes, the way he comes off the screens, the way he sets up in transition, the way he uses the pump fake to get the defender flyby, and doesn't really shift too far over with the sidestep. He just kind of slight sidestep, goes right into shot. That's very KCP-ish. But KCP was what we knew we got out of KCP was his defense. And D'Moi has had some nice moments defensively for sure. Jumping passing lanes, stealing the ball in traffic, that sort of thing. But we got to see at the NBA level, like against real NBA players, can you navigate those screens? Can you eat a bad screen from a Joel Embiid type or some really rugged Bismack Biyombo physical rim screener, DeAndre Ayton kind of guy, and work your way around it? Because that's really what made KCP as good as he was. Like the three ball was streaky with him. Laker fans were practically campaigning to bully him. Like the KCP, I think, is the first success story that Lakers Twitter claims to successfully be bullied into shooting better. But KCP's defense he was a physical guard. And he used to get after. He used to steal balls. He used to get in traffic. That's really so we got to see that at D'Moi. And if he hits threes at an above average clip, it sounds great to me.
Yeah, I love that point about players don't really emulate the games of role guys. If you go listen to any wing that was drafted. They all mentioned Paul George,
Yeah,
and as much jokes as you make about Paul George, again, it's another just unprecedented type of stuff. Paul George, the handle, the shot making, that's just stuff that, not that you shouldn't aspire to that. It's just, again, Paul George is in that very high percentile kind of outcomes. But no, I see it in his game. I was being a little facetious with he's pretending to model after KCP. He's a guy that, again, like, has a bunch of college experience, a guy who probably knows what he is. Like, he's not out there experimenting, like, he's not asking for a million pick and rolls to like run ball screens or understand, like, okay, let me see if I can do this. Let me
right.
see if I can do that. He's like, no, I know my role. Like, I either have a 3-point shot or I don't.
Yeah,
He had one play though, and it was like where he split the trap. I don't even remember this play, but like I think a screen came up. He like split the double and drove to the rim for a layup. That's just stuff, like, again, those are shooter reads, right? Like
right.
those are just reads that shooters make. Two people come up on the ball, I can split it, get to the rim. Very decisive is what I would say about him. Not
Yeah,
always gonna make the shots, but always is in the right place. The broadcast mentioned something which, like, said the Lakers are always spaced correctly.
right,
Like the
right, right.
spacing, like, again, we shitted on Charlotte a lot here, but like
Bro, Charlotte's we
well,
can talk about
it's
some other
just
time.
it's
Charlotte's the
it's just
best, but
like
yeah,
it's just I've seen a lot of Charlotte because Charlotte
yeah,
played the day we went, and then they also played the Lakers. So just seen a lot of their team, and just put it nicely, their spacing isn't
yeah,
spacing isn't up to par. But like the Lakers have really nice spacing. I think Demoy Hodge just understands where to be on the floor. Castleton obviously fits into that, but guy, again, shot 7 threes a game in college and shot like 41% on those. He's 6'4" as well, so at least has a chance. He's not like 6'1", right? A lot of these guards you
yeah.
see that come out are like 6'1", 6 foot. Like Scottie Pippen Jr., I think, is like 6'1", 6'2".
He's
Like,
six
it's
one. Yeah,
very, you have to be so elite at everything else to like,
yeah,
you have to be Trae Young, right? Like, to
yeah,
be, I mean, to not Trae Young's, again, at the higher percentile of like what you can be, but that type of skill level. And it's just nice when guards can come in and play their role, and I think he's part of that. Lakers gave him a two-way for a reason. He's a guy that they obviously marked as someone that they wanted on their team to play real basketball games for
mhm.
the upper squad. And yeah, it's been fun, man. I love the aggressiveness on the ball. He had like 3 steals, I remember. I think, like, just being a ball hawk at the point of attack, and that's what he was drafted as. Again, these guys just feel roles. Like, these are low, probably ceiling, high floor guys. Like,
Yeah,
that's what you're looking for. And a lot of teams draft on the high ceiling because that's just easier to sell. But these like high floor guys are where you can build around a good team. So we'll see if he can contribute. But he's
yeah,
been great.
yeah. I absolutely agree. I think low risk and low ceiling, but
Yeah.
high floor is best is a great way to describe it. Those are the kinds of guys because you can rely on them to some degree to always hit that floor. Is they do help you get through an 82 game season. Some cases those guys pop off a little bit more and they end up helping you win a championship. Like I think of the word on KCP was not that great even when he was a Laker prior to Braun. Even after Braun came, there was a lot of uncertainty about him as a player. But he ended up being a very serious contributor to the team, so that ended up being super helpful.
But I just got a DM from Lemurs who said it was a pre-draft quote. So he actually has a Pacers shirt on in this pre-draft and mentioned
Interesting.
KCP. So apologies for
Interesting.
that, even
Yeah,
though
yeah.
I was just joking about it. But yeah, like, it was. Someone immediately corrected me and said he said it during a Pacers pre-draft
Yeah,
workout. So there you go.
yeah, 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 yeah. So it's, I mean, it's regardless. Like I personally, me as a person, I'm not hardcore into college basketball, but I do like seeing players compare them, like try to aspire
Yeah.
to be certain kinds of role players. Because like KCP was like at one point before the Lakers got him, like he got offered like some 4 years, some X amount of like 50, 60, 70, $80 million from
Turned it
Detroit, I
down.
want to say. Yeah. So he turned it down or whatever, or his agent turned it down. And then I think he switched to Rich Paul and whatnot. And so
And
like
got it
that,
all back.
yeah, and he got it all back. And like I
Earned
think
it.
it's a good way to go about it because it makes it
Yep.
easy for teams to do. And obviously Austin's success, Caruso's success, being an all defensive player with Chicago, getting his contract.
Hmm.
That's all been, it's been super awesome for them. But we need to get to a guy who might be in trouble. We would be remiss if we were only all hunky dory happy about like everything that
Oh
happened and
man.
acted as if nothing else happened. But Cole Swider is in a little bit of trouble, in my opinion.
Sure.
If Max Christie looks like he's really figured out who he is and where he needs to improve, Cole Swider hasn't done anything, in my opinion, and he has not looked good. He
No.
has struggled defensively, like he's gotten lost. His feet are still really bad defensively. His defensive instincts are still very bad. He's getting beat on very basic drives, very basic fakes. California Classic, he looked like he was. Did you watch the celebrity game this past All-Star break?
No.
Okay, so do you know who Ranveer Singh is? The Indian actor.
Oh, I think
Okay.
I think so.
Yeah, it's okay. Well, so Ranveer Singh, he plays it. I have a point with this, folks. The folks are listening to the space, so I'll say. So Ranveer Singh is not very good at basketball. To give you an idea of how not good at basketball he is, he was wearing the jersey number 69 at a celebrity game.
Nice.
And I'm pretty sure he was doing it, for the reason that we think.
Sure.
But he doesn't know how to play. And Cole, in the games that I've watched, obviously he's had some moments where he's hit a couple of shots in a row. It's been kind of cool to see him find his shots, but it hasn't really been consistent. But defensively, Cole has kind of looked like he doesn't know how to play basketball. And he's running into guys. He's fouling dudes like in the paint, just being completely out of position. Like he's trying to crash the glass and he's somehow managing to foul people in the process of doing that. And I think he's in serious danger of losing that two-way spot to a guy like Alex Fudge, who seems to jump off the screen every single time he's on the floor. So I'm really not sure what's going to end up happening with him, but I wouldn't be surprised if he loses his two-way and it goes to somebody else. What have you seen from him? Or have not seen that you were hoping to see from him?
Yeah, he's breaking my my heart, man. I was probably the only believer on Cole Swider Island. It's a pretty lonely place now, Vinay. There's no one left.
I'm not there with you, so
I know.
Right.
Everyone took their first flight out. I'm like, hey, let me just see if the lights turn on. Let's just wait a few more days. I got some water with me. No, so I said before that guys like Cole and honestly though, Vinay, he shot well enough, right? Like his threes have gone in he's shooting terrible shots. Like I wish he was a little bit more selective. Yeah. He's obviously been told he's the shooter on the team and he's really taken that to heart, right? He's like, oh, I'm the shooter on the team. Like I have the license to fire whenever I want. And I just wish it was, let's be open a little bit. Every contested three, not every step back means you're open, those kind of stuff, which I would have loved to see some growth. It feels like he's gotten worse defensively, which is a very weird bar to climb, but it feels like he has. Last year he was bad, but I always said a guy who's 6'9" at least has the tools, right? You're 6'9", you have the size at least. But yeah, he just moves like he's hasn't defended in his life, which is
he doesn't even get into like a defensive stance. It's like he's standing upright the whole time. It's like, and then he's getting blown by and you can't seem to figure out why that's happening.
100%. And he's a guy that's played multiple years in college. Like I feel like he's a guy that should have been able to at Syracuse. At a guy that should have at least learned some defensive concepts. But it's bad, man. Like again, a guy of his level, because I think he's a guy that with the right open shots could shoot a respectable percentage from three, but you can't be this below baseline at everything else. Yeah. Like you need to be Duncan Robinson, or you know what I mean? Like such an elite shooter, and Duncan Robinson even was unplayable for a while. So you know what I mean? Like until he learned, okay, I got to be able to have some off the dribble stuff. I got to be able to be a cutter at least a little bit, have some playmaking chops. Cole Swider playmaking chops, like forget about that. Like one pass to the corner is like, is like seeing a freaking full moon. Like that dude catches it and it's going up, whether or not there's three people on him or there's one. That's stuff that's really disappointing to me. So yeah, I feel like he's a guy that, again, get him through another year of our South Bay. Maybe that's another year of growth. He was hurt, I think, for a lot of last year. So I give him a little bit of a break in terms of having NBA quote unquote experience. He did get in NBA games for like a few minutes here and there. But no, it's been bad, man. There's it's tough. Is the 3-point shooting. He could shoot 43% from three and it'd still be a really deep net negative, and a guy that I think just has not looked good. So what do you see? Is there any hope left? Is it a guy that
he's done, bro. I think he's done. I'm not even gonna be nice about it. Like I had to see a leap from him. Like I had to see something. and it was
Sure.
going to have to be on the defensive end, or he was going to have to become a prolific rebounder. And we were both sitting there, and we both had the same idea when we sat down. Where I was like, I would like these sets to go to Maxwell Lewis. I don't want to see Cole Swider run this pistol action or whatever that action is, where he comes from the opposite side. You know the sets better than I do, and comes over and gets that dribble handoff from Colin. And then he gets that free throw line jumper, or he gets to decide whatever he wants to do. Like, I don't want him doing those anymore. Like, I want to see Maxwell do them because he looks much more dynamic with the ball in his hands. And that's no offense to Cole Swider. It's just I think if that's who he is and that's who he wants to be, and that's the best, if that's his ceiling, I don't think that's worth a two-way at least on this Lakers team. I'd like to give that other kid, Alex Fudge, a chance at that two-way, because every time he touches the ball, he's finishing. He's super above the rim athletic. He's doing stuff on defense. He's trying to block shots. Reminds me a lot of, like, I can't even think of a good comp for him, but like a guy who's like a Derek Jones Jr. type guy who just kind of goes around and does a little bit of everything, but it's not like amazing at like every single, like one specific thing, but kind of like he can just put him in different places and do different things. So I think he might be in trouble. I would not be shocked if they decide to award his two-way to somebody else, because Demoy looks great, Colin looks great. So unless one of those guys gets converted to the main roster, which I don't think is going to happen, I think that's what it is. But did you have any other thoughts? We still have a little bit more time, so I updated the space name. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts?
I'll just close on Cole. Like, he doesn't need to be the first option anymore. Like, we can stop that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's clear that's what they're being told. And I'm not mad at JHS for doing that, because that's obviously the set that's being called out of the play. Yeah. You can see Cole Swider ready to sprint up to get that look. Does not matter what the defense is doing in that position. That shot is going up. We can chill on those now. But again, I hope the best for him. A guy that can shoot like that, like, should be at least, if you're baseline and anything else, you're at least on a roster. He hasn't shown that. So that's sad. Again, he's I know he hasn't played many NBA games, but you've gone through at least a rigor of NBA training, like, NBA training. You've been in weight rooms with NBA trainers. You've been involved in NBA practices to some extent. Like, I expected at least some growth in that department. I haven't seen one bit. So maybe that's just the way it is. We'll see if he can crack a rotation. But Alex Fudge, man, has been fun. Like, that dude understands basketball. I feel like he's always in the right place. He's a lob finisher. His jumper has gone down. I think he's 2 for 2 from three in the summer league. He's only taken 2 threes. They've looked nice when they've gone up. Just a guy who I think he's from Duke as well, if I have that right. Just an all-around player. Gets a lot of deflections. Comes in, had some nice steals as well. Just a highly athletic guy that I expect to be on our South Bay roster coming up this season. But a lot of fun young talent, man. I don't know how old Alex Fudge is. I'll look that up.
I was gonna say, like, he was always smiling. Like, every single time I saw him do something on the court and run back, he had like a huge smile on his face. Like, he's just like happy to be there. So I was just like, I don't know. It's just such a strange, because you usually don't see players like smiling in the middle of the game. Like, he dunked the ball, big smile on his face. Hit a three, big smile on his face. I was just like, man, this guy's really enjoying playing basketball in Vegas, I guess. So, it may not be Alex. It may be somebody else. They may see somebody else that they want. But I think the Cole Swider era, unless something drastically changes and, they believe in him and the franchise believes in him in a capacity that we don't see. Sure. I'm not quite sure that third two-way should go to him, all things considered. So we did have a little bit more time. We covered a lot of stuff with the Summer League, just the experience, just the players in general, and seeing what happens with the Vegas Lakers. Are 2-0 in Vegas now, Vegas Summer League. So Jovan actually wrote something. Jovan writes for The Athletic. He covers the LA beat. He wrote about the Lakers being connected to Christian Wood and Bismack Biyombo. Rob Pelinka recently said in an interview that he wants the Lakers are actively looking for a big man. Now, I know behind the scenes that Christian Wood has been offered a lot of veteran minimum contracts, meaning a lot of teams in the league want him, but a lot of teams in the league don't want him at anything more than a veteran minimum. And his issue is not so much defensively. There's some talent issues there. Whether he wants to play defense, motor, all that sort of stuff. Offensively, he is pretty skilled. Offensively, a great shooter, probably a 4, can play some 5 and whatnot. A little bit skinny. I want to say he's about the same height as AD from what I see in the pictures. I haven't seen him in person, but there's some off. There's like personal skills that he has to work on, maturity and stuff like that. That's what I've heard about him. That
Sure.
he's got some issues on that end. Not issues, I would say, but there's just some non-compatible stuff with the locker room when it comes to that, whether it's like work ethic or maturity, that sort of thing. And that's kind of what's held him back. And I think that's why he's in the situation that he's in right now. But the Lakers are interested in both of those guys. I don't want Bismack Biyombo. If I have to choose between two of them, I would be okay with like going with Christian Wood. You would hope he plays on a Lakers locker room, like or not hope plays, but like he like figures himself out.
Understands.
Like maybe the fact that he's only getting veteran minimum contracts might be a wake up thing, for him, a wake up call for him, and he might think to himself like that he has to really build his rep up again. No better place to build your rep up than in a Lakers jersey. That Lakers might have a shot in that opportunity. What do you think about the idea? I'm not against it. I'm just worried about the stuff that comes with him. What do you think about the idea of Christian Wood? Because there's actually after you answer it, I have a follow-up question for you. But what do you think about the Lakers signing? Let's say tomorrow we find out Christian Wood has been signed as a veteran minimum. What do you think about that signing?
That they know something we don't. I mean, so there's a lot of, again, there's a lot of information that comes out on these type of guys, and you can listen to who you want. I think the consensus has kind of been what you've said, is that there's a maturity issue, which, again, Vinay, is concerning for a guy who's 27. Christian Wood has gotten paid in the league. He hasn't gotten like a huge max contract, but he's gotten like some $50 million deals. You know what I mean? Like, he's a guy that's been through, that knows the NBA, that understands it. Again, I just not sure that he's in the position where like, okay, let me go ring chase or whatever. Or, I'm not sure. Like, I feel like he's gonna want shots and opportunity. And is that something we can sell? Like, I don't know. Like, maybe like for the minimum, I understand the talent grab. Like, I think that's very similar. Obviously, him and Jackson Hayes have different issues, but very similar. Like, grab the talent and figure it out later, which a lot of teams do. A lot of teams let's just grab the talent. Who cares? Like, I don't care. You have what in your pitch? Like, let's just grab the talent. We'll figure out from there. And I think for a Lakers team where the edges are kind of, you need to build off the edges. And I just don't think Christian Wood is a guy. Like, I think he changes the dynamics of your team in a way where he needs to play. Like, it's not a guy that I think you can ride on the bench for 30 games. Hey, Christian Wood, we need 15 minutes tomorrow in Houston. He's going to be like, I haven't played in 4 weeks. Yeah. Like, you think I'm about to come out here and defensive slide and, rim protect? Like, I'm gonna go out there and gun shots. Like, again, it could work. I understand why you and a lot of people I think are for it. I just feel like there might be better options at the deadline. I think that you can ride your way through smaller lineups through the regular season and work your way through that. But I get it. Biyombo, again, I think there's a reason he's still on the market. Like, he's 30 years old. He's 6'8". He has a long wingspan. I think he has good defensive instincts. But those, again, just don't inspire me like I think other center projects would. But what do you think? Sell me on Christian Wood.
Yeah. So my thing is, so there's two issues. I have two parts of this that I wanted to bring up. Like, one, I think the offensive basketball talent is there. So the same way we talk about Rui being like good insurance for LeBron when LeBron sits out games. Or misses games for injury. Offensively, I think Rui is a great natural substitute into the starting lineup for him. I think Christian Wood can be that offensively for AD. Floor spacing 4, rangy, long. I don't know. Maybe in Ham's defensive scheme, it works out a little bit better because he's not doing as much hardcore protection stuff for Dallas. I don't know. A lot of it's motor related too. I don't know if he has the defensive motor to do all that sort of stuff. But my other issue is exactly what you described, the other part of it. The reason why I wouldn't sign him is if you sign him, you have to use him. He's not going to sign to any team that doesn't give him opportunity. And we're running into a situation where we're going to have Vando, we're going to have Rui, and then you're talking about signing Christian Wood. And I would argue that if you sign Christian Wood, then either Christian or Rui has to start now because you can't play them
Yeah.
together. They're not both. You wouldn't have enough defense on the floor to make that work. So unless your whole goal is just to go out there and have your bench outscore the other bench and play zero defense at all, like that would be very difficult to work. And, we know the dynamics of basketball. Your starting lineup comes in and plays great. Bench comes in and plays like hot garbage because they're not defending. That can throw off like the whole rhythm of the game for the coach and the rest of the team. So I'm worried about that.
Yeah.
If you can get all that stuff under control, again, low risk because it's a veteran minimum. You can just waive them. But like at the same time, I can't risk somebody. Not risk. I don't want anybody in the locker room that's going to get mad about minutes. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
And to be honest, the Lakers have had some issues promising guys minutes and better players being stuck on the bench because of it. And, guys who could actually help us win games because of those kind of politics that have been made. And I just feel like unless that's made very, very clear that it is a meritocracy, that you're not just going to get these minutes just because, of who you are or whatever, like, then I think it's just too much of a hurdle. So it's just, I've heard that a lot of teams have given him a veteran minimum. All he's doing is really waiting for the biggest money dollar offer that he can get, whether somebody throws him an MLE at the very, a little bit later or something like that. But that's genuinely my concern. It's like, if you get him, you got to play him, and he can't be a 10-minute guy.
Does it remind you a little bit? Obviously, these are different players, and I think different talent level. I mean, it can be compared or not, but a little of the Montrezl Harrell situation to me, where Trez was really good in that regular season. But again, I think he was a guy that you needed to be able to not play when it matters, right? And I think that was the situation. And obviously, him and the Lakers kind of went opposite ways in that, and he was traded away in the Russ deal. It's forgotten that he was in part of that Russ deal. Lakers just traded away their, MLE spot basically, which is another just mistake in their part of mistakes during that summer.
He was great AD insurance. He was a good offensive insurance for AD. Natural replacement.
100%. But he's a guy that, again, like out of that spot, you needed a defensive five.
Yeah,
that's not what he was. Lakers got cooked in the lineups when he was the defensive five, just like the Clippers got cooked in those lineups when he was the defensive five. And I think that's, like, to me, the skill set of Wood doesn't really match the needs of the team, even though the talent level is obviously high. I mean, man, you look at Christian Wood's numbers. I mean, if someone was just looking at low-hanging box, score numbers, I mean, he averaged almost 17 a game last year, 37% from three, 7 rebounds, almost two assists, around 52%. I mean, those are like solid numbers.
Yeah.
Those numbers for like a normal kind of situation, I don't know everything about it, so I don't want to speak on it like I'm speaking down on it. It's just, you look at the situation at hand, he has only minimum offers. Like that, to me, those are flags that are being thrown.
Yeah. I mean, Dallas traded for him and they don't want him. So that should tell you something.
Exactly, yeah. And then, like, not to compare them, but like Montrezl Harrell went back to the Sixers for the minimum. Like, it's the guy that should be able to average 15 and 10. But like, there's obviously something there where the teams, and Andre Drummond, I don't know if you saw the video today, but he had like a little
talking to the kids
video,
about
right?
his,
He's basically like, people don't care how many rebounds you get. Like, he was making $100 million and he's now on minimum deals, and he's like, people really care about your character and how you act, and like, there's some, like, Andre Drummond needs to be a better basketball player too, a little bit in there, but yeah, for sure, like, all that stuff is involved, and that's why, like, I would rather wait. But I understand, like, why Christian Wood have 8 minimum offers, because that's just a talent grab that you can't pass up on. I throw flags at that. And we have enough projects. We have Cam Reddish, Jackson Hayes. Those are other guys who are trying to prove themselves as NBA pros. Christian Wood's going to be playing for a contract. I think that's a lot to mix in on a year with a lot at stake in terms of winning. So we'll see.
If they could do something simple, like just bring back Tristan or something like that, if they really went back up 5 minutes. I don't think that I wouldn't put that past the Lakers to do something like that, especially after, I think we usually get those guys. It's usually a clutch guy that gets Rich usually finds somebody who can be impactful. Tristan had a nice half or game 4 or whatever. I've heard that Tristan's also a really good locker room vet. Off the court stuff aside, he's supposedly a really great locker room vet. So there's been some murmurings about like him possibly being like the 15th guy, like on a non-guarantee, being
Sure.
signed and whatnot. So I'll be curious who they go with for. I was looking around to see if there's anybody young that was available. The only guy that kind of popped out to me was the kid from Portland that got waived, Trendon Watford. Trendon Watford.
Okay. Yeah.
I think he's about 6'8", but he plays much. He's got like a really nice wingspan. Plays bigger than his actual size. Like I've seen Portland play him at like the 5 sometimes as like this
Yeah.
small ball center and whatnot. That might be a kid that's worth. He just got drafted not too long ago. Now he's waived. Obviously, Portland in a very different place right now with what they're doing with their prospects. Maybe he's a guy you could take a flyer on. A guy like Jackson Hayes and like we are with Cam Reddish might be somebody that maybe the Lakers feel that they can get something out of. But really, it's just kind of waiting to see, what sort of materializes. This apparent Damian Lillard trade still supposed to happen. The Harden trade that was supposed to be happening is super quiet now. It hasn't happened at all. Daryl Morey, I think, is just trying to see if he can get somebody. He might wait until like right before the season starts before he makes the trade at this point.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just. I think there's still some bigger moves that are going to happen in the NBA, and then like all these final things will kind of settle out a little bit more. So I'll be really curious to see what happens. But I haven't heard any other names, for the 14th and 15th spot. It's really been, obviously it's been Wood, Bismack, Tristan. I'd be curious to know, who else possibly shows up.
Right. And that's why, again, I'm on the like, just wait. I don't think there's any rush.
Yeah, there's no rush.
So, again, if you get Christian Wood for the minimum, totally understand it. If you want to heat check your development and your locker room and, just your player development and Darvin Ham's kind of ability to lead and LeBron and AD being superstars in the league, I get that. Like, from an organizational standpoint, they have enough, I guess, resume. They have enough of a resume to be like, hey, we can bring in a guy with an absurd amount of talent. 'Cause that's never the question. And see if he can, kind of rebrand his value around the league. They've done it with a bunch of other guys. Dwight Howard was obviously at the end of his career. But again, another guy, people forget when Dwight came to the Lakers, no one wanted to touch him either. Yeah. Got a non-guaranteed deal until December, I believe, was his non-guarantee during that year. And he had similar locker room issues, and Dwight obviously was I think he was like 33 that year or 34, I forgot. But he was obviously way past the point where Christian Wood feels he is. It's just if you want to go down that road, I totally understand. I just think like there's enough projects on this team, and I think you can survive. Having maybe Hayes and Castleton and whatever, and maybe LeBron as like the backup center for enough until you can find another option. But I get it though. Wood is a talented dude who, again, has a lot of flags that a lot of teams are, obviously scared of. So we'll see if he materializes on the team.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see just kind of what direction they go in. But yeah, like you said, it's the 14th and 15th roster spots, so we're not really looking like we know what we need, but we're not looking for like these, a guy that's going to clearly win you the championship off of those 14th and 15th. So like we've got most of our rotation kind of fixed in. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if any other news comes out. But as we continue on, Vegas Summer League is going to continue on, and we'll continue to keep track of the young guys. Hopefully we see continued improvement or continued success once the Lakers, that the Summer League team might have a chance to win the whole thing. Well, I'd be curious. That OKC team looks a little crazy because they're playing a lot of the guys who already have a lot of reps. They have a good talent there too, but I'd love to see the Lakers make some noise. The Summer League team make some noise for themselves too as well. Rod, do you have any other final thoughts before we let the crowd go?
No, that's it, man. It was fun seeing, the amount of people we did at Summer League. Hopefully you guys can make it out next year. Hopefully we can stay a little bit longer, go to a couple more games. Went to just a few this time, but yeah, man, this is fun. Let's get the games rolling here. Got a few more. Next game is on Wednesday, so Lakers play the Celtics on Wednesday. Yeah. So as always, we appreciate all the folks jumping in and tuning in with us from start to finish or whenever you jump in. The Space audio will be on your podcast feeds tomorrow morning, if not by tonight. And obviously the YouTube video will also be there tomorrow, most likely around noon Pacific Standard Time, if not earlier than that. But as always, we appreciate you, whether you like, subscribe, share, whatever you do to support the pod.
and the space. We love it, and we always appreciate it. And shout out to all the folks that we met in Vegas. That was super fun. And it's always awesome to meet more people who are passionate about this team and practically treat it like a religion, which is probably an unhealthy obsession for both of us, but that's what we do. But as always, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a wonderful evening or a wonderful day whenever you end up listening to this. And we'll catch you in the next one. Take it easy.
Peace.